Welcome to 98% Podcast, where we hear real stories from real people. And I'm here with Ryne Seals. So, Ryne, tell us a little bit about yourself.
Oh, boy. Well, my name's Ryne. I grew up in Tennessee. I don't know where else to go with that.
Just high level, whatever you want to say. Just high level.
I don't know. I'm not good at, I'm better at, you give me a question, prompt, I can talk about it.
Yeah.
Just talking about myself openly is just weird.
Yeah, this is always the toughest part, I think, for everybody. It's just tell us a little bit about yourself. And everybody's like, I don't know what you want me to say.
I don't know. I'm a filmmaker. I like music.
There you go.
There you go.
Boom. Got it. Okay. So how do you know me?
We work together.
Okay.
Since what? You've been here, a month, 2 months?
8 weeks.
8 weeks, so 2 months.
2 months, yeah.
There you go. Yeah,
Pretty cool.
we became fast friends.
Yeah. Why?
Because we both like metal.
Yeah.
Pretty much.
Yeah. You guys still remember it was my first week, and we're getting shots, and all of a sudden we're just like, "You're into metal?" Yeah, I'm into metal. And we started
specifically.
Okay.
It was when we were in the marketing meeting with Nicole.
Yep.
And you were like, "Yeah, I like to scream," and I was like, "Yes."
I remember you did it. I was like, "Oh, so we got a fellow screamer here." Okay.
Yes.
And that was like instant bond. That was good. Yeah. Yeah, that totally happened. And then I think, when we did shots, I remember we were just talking about music, our music taste.
Mm-hmm.
Then we started talking about movies, because obviously you do all the film stuff. And
mm-hmm.
Yeah, we've had some great conversations.
Yeah.
Probably too many conversations, but it's been awesome.
That's what's bad about it. That's why I like kind of the work from home thing, because it's that's when I get my work done.
Yeah.
Because when I work in an office environment, I'm too much of a chatty Cathy. Especially if I have people that I have regular conversation with, it's just I forget time exists.
I feel the same way. I always make the excuse of well, you're building trust.
Yeah. Camaraderie.
Exactly. That's what I say. Because it's the normal everyday conversations that actually build trust and teamwork. So
100%. 100%.
So that's always my go-to.
Yeah. We'll go with that.
I love it. Love it. Okay. Cool. So how this works, I sent you the questions in advance a while back. Obviously, you were able to look at them as much as you want.
Mm-hmm.
And all we're going to do is we're going to go through those questions. And the goal is just for you to connect with the audience and them to find ways to connect with you. And, each guest is different and brings something unique, but I feel like we all have similar things sometimes that we all
mm-hmm.
deal with too. So, so to start off, let's start from the beginning. So what was growing up like for you?
Well, like I said, I grew up in Tennessee. So, my mom was a teacher. My dad was a mechanic for a long time, and then he got into NASCAR. And that moved us to North Carolina around when I was 15-ish. Mm-hmm. And then, so like I said, my mom was a teacher. She was the youngest of 4 older brothers. And so she was the tomboy,
mm-hmm.
of the family. funny enough, my mom's side of the family, they were one of the founding families of Tennessee. Like they have a plaque and everything from Nathaniel Austin of, I think it was 1763, moving to Tennessee.
Wow.
So there's that. And they come from a line of like bishops and deacons. So like my family was very ingrained in the church, at least my mom's side. Whereas my father's side, from various stories and history, whatever, we are the descendants of Frank and Jesse James's oldest sister, who married one of the guys that used to rob banks with them. And our last name became Seals because my descendants were driving along, and she goes, "What are we going to call ourselves? The law's after us." Frank had turned himself in. Jesse had been killed. They were looking for him, and he saw a mailbox that said Seals on it. He said, "That's our new last name." And that's where that came from. So it's the son of outlaws and church kind of come together in that respect. So yeah.
That's awesome. It's funny too that I feel like everybody's like, there's always really interesting stories behind where people descend from, like the descendant system. It's funny because like I think about, my dad says, that according to some type of ancestry thing, that we're descendants of Daniel Boone, which is wild, and also Chief Pathkiller.
Oh,
so
interesting.
Apparently, which seems kind of interesting as well. So
it's funny you say that. Like, so my mom's side, my great grandmother was, or my great great grandmother was Cherokee, from what I've been told, and then my great grandmother, she was half Cherokee, and she didn't speak English, from what I was told, and like. And like my grandpa always used to say, like he had a hard time communicating with his mother because she wasn't allowed to teach them the language. And so like she had 13 kids. The 13th kid died, and then she died. And so like I think my grandpa said he was somewhere in like 10 to 13-year-old range, I think is what they said. And he had to like go to school and stuff because he didn't have mom. He had to help take care of us siblings, 12 siblings. All that stuff, so
it's a lot. It's a different world back then.
Oh my gosh, crazy. Well, and my grandpa said, I felt bad for my mom. She was a good woman, but my grandpa just wouldn't stay off her.
Clearly, the evidence is there.
Yeah.
That's awesome. Okay, so that's kind of like your family side. So how about you when you grew up? What are some of the things, like what got you interested in film, and I know you do music and things like that. So what kind of, that I'm sure you probably picked that up as a kid, I would assume.
Yeah. Well, I always loved television, stuff like that. And I was obsessed with anything George Lucas. So Indiana Jones and Star Wars. I had the box set of both of those, and I watched them on repeat constantly. Anytime there was a new movie out, I wanted to go see it. My favorite thing in the world was going to the movies. And, growing up with my parents and the way we didn't have a lot of money until my dad really got into NASCAR. So it was a lot of like, we were at home, I watched TV, did that, and going to the movies was a treat. And I loved going to the movies every chance we got. So, I mean, it was that, a lot of like Star Wars action figures, playing that outside. I spent a lot of time in the woods as a kid. I was very fortunate I got to do that. Fishing, hunting, all that fun stuff. I know I don't look like someone who used to hunt and fish, but yeah.
Okay, who's your favorite Star Wars character?
God, that's changed so many times. I mean, if you would have asked 6-7-year-old me, that would have been Luke Skywalker. You ask 10 to 13-year-old me, Darth Maul. So now I would say probably Ahsoka or someone like that. Yeah.
Okay. That's funny because mine was Darth Maul.
Oh yeah.
Always, dude. When I watched episode 1, that character stuck in my head so much. Like one, he looked menacing.
Yes.
His lightsaber skills were phenomenal.
Yeah.
So Ray Park did an awesome job.
Oh yeah, he killed it.
And then, the first time we saw the double lightsaber, I mean, it was just like, whoa! Not only it went out that side too. Like, whoa! Like, it was just nuts.
I remember seeing the trailer as a kid and just losing my absolute mind. And like before the movie had come out, it was like near Halloween, and my mom's like, "What do you want to be for Halloween?" I was like, "I want to be Darth Maul." She's like, "He looks like a demon." And I was like, "I know."
Yeah, me too. So I thought I looked so cool, so I did that when I got home. I had watercolors. That's all the paint I had. So I watercolored my face to look like Darth Maul. But the thing is, I didn't have black, so I had purple and I had red. And of course, it just looked like a nasty mess. And I spiked my hair. And I remember just looking in the mirror and being like, actually, I was pretty disappointed. I looked at it like, yeah, no, this doesn't look like Darth Maul.
See, it bummed me out because my mom, she finally agreed to let me be Darth Maul, but she would not buy the face paint with the contact lenses because that's what I wanted. And she was smart enough to know that if I had those orange contacts, it was going to bite her in the butt because I would. My favorite thing has always been I love prank scares. Like my siblings will tell you how much they hated how much I just love scaring them. And then my one roommate in college, Zach, if you're watching this, I pranked that poor kid to where when I met his wife, she was like, "Oh, you're the roommate that pranked him all the time and scared him." Like one time he was come back from class and I got inside of our washer because I knew he was going to come back and start a load of laundry. So I got in the washer, and when he opened the lid, I popped out, and I thought he died.
It's the last thing you expect.
Exactly. And then he started doing this thing where he would like check the lid. So then I like got up and I like held up on the wall against the ceiling like this, and then fell down on top of him one time.
Dude, you traumatized that guy.
I did, and I regret it. I'm sorry, Zach. He knows though.
That's awesome.
We were good friends though. We still are, but
that's awesome. Okay, so George Lucas, all those types of movies really got you kind of into movies.
And I was super into like Goosebumps and like anything scary, but I wasn't allowed to watch it because I had an overactive imagination. So if I watch something scary, I can't sleep.
Yeah, I feel that.
So, but I loved it. I don't know why, but I loved the adrenaline rush of it.
Yeah, it's funny I resonate with that because I was the same way. Like as a kid, like, you know, people were collecting maybe certain types of action figures, and I had like Spawn. Like I was just always going down like all the hell stuff and all that stuff because I just thought it looked super cool.
Yeah. See, I was the same way, but because you know, growing up in a Pentecostal family, like that was that wasn't even an option.
Yeah, my mom hated it, like because we were pretty religious too. But I just remember like it got to the point where she just like, yeah, I don't like looking at some of those in your bedroom. I was like, okay. I was like, yeah, the tortured soul stuff is a lot.
Yeah.
I don't know if you remember that stuff.
Yeah.
I don't even know why I bought it. I think because it was like $5 at KB Toys back in the day. So it was like, it's cheap. I can buy that.
Oh, that's funny.
Yeah. So I had a lot of.
Yeah, but, you know, doing that. And then, I don't know, around when I was 12, I broke my back in a car accident. I don't think I've ever told you that. I broke my back in a car accident. Well, broke my nose and my back. Lacerated my spleen and liver. I was in the hospital for like 2 weeks, and then I immediately got out and then came back because my bones, instead of coming back together, they were separating because what had happened is my L1 and L3 had crushed the L2 vertebrae.
Oh.
And so they had separated away from that, and the doctor's like, if we don't get you into surgery immediately, you're going to be paralyzed from the waist down the rest of your life.
Wow.
And it was crazy, you know. The doctor told me 80% of people that get this accident are paralyzed from the waist down, so you're the 20%. So let's start there. Then when I went into surgery, like 40% of people come out of this paralyzed. So there was still, you know, that was a lot at 12 years old, you know, dealing with that. And it gave me a concussion. And I think after that, like, I really started dealing with like depression and really intense anxiety from that point forward, even until now. So like, I battled with depression really hard in my teen years. I think as a result of that head trauma kind of stuff, because, you know, they talk about, you know, with head trauma stuff, it can change personality and stuff. And I used to be like a really happy, bright person. And then I was kind of dark and, you know, more in that realm. And that's when I started getting into like punk rock, metal, and stuff like that. And I really got into horror movies and after that accident. So, and then, did all that and got into music, started doing music videos when I was around 15, 16 years old, using my mom's Canon PowerShot, did 13-second videos at like 240p, and I did skate videos with my friends because I used to skateboard. And then I got into music, and that was the thing. Like, oh man, you sold out and went into music. That's what all the skateboarders did, you know. And then started doing the music video thing, and then I went to school to do film. Went to 3 different colleges, but I also went to 3 different high schools, so I guess that makes sense. So,
Yeah. Dang, it's funny. I have no excuse, and I got into dark stuff without head trauma. So I don't know where that came from.
I think I was previously into it because I really got into Lord of the Rings as a teenager, and so like I love the Nazgul and all that fun stuff. But like, I think it just propelled it a little bit after the head trauma stuff. I don't know.
Yeah, it's interesting because that's funny though, because I don't think those are mutually exclusive though too. Because I've always felt like a pretty happy person, but that's why nobody ever expects me to like yeah, I listen to metal music in a metal band for a long time, and they're like, what?
Yeah.
I'm like, yeah. They're like, I would have not guessed. So then I always say, well, what do you guess that I listen to? And nobody can ever come up with that either.
Jazz? See, I've always listened to everything because like I go through phases, right? So like when I was a kid, it was country and, you know, Christian music, and then it was rap, and then I got into new metal, and then punk, and then metal again.
Yeah.
And then I got into like folk music and dubstep at the same time.
Those are the same.
Yeah, basically. Yeah. And then like as I've gotten older, it's like I appreciate more like jazz, and like I listen to everything. Really, even pop music I can handle if it's catchy enough. But then what I like to do is when I listen to pop music that I get stuck on, because I'll get into phases where I listen to the same song over and over.
Yep.
I will listen to it until I hate it, and then I'm done with it.
Dude, I'm the same way.
Yeah.
And I feel like I know more and more people like that now, but for a while I felt like I was the only person like that.
Right. Yeah.
Because, if I hear a song I like, I'm listening to it nonstop. I did it this morning. I listened to that same song yesterday.
Yeah.
It just happens, until I get tired of it, and then I move on. So I'm curious about what my Spotify rap looks like.
Yeah.
Because I have no idea. A lot of people know, but I'm like, I've listened to so many single songs so much that I have no idea.
My Spotify rap always pisses me off because it's always like, I'm always like, oh yeah, I listened to this the most. And it's like, nope, you listened to this. I'm like, no, I didn't. And then you go back and look, and you're like, oh, I guess I did.
You're like, it doesn't really represent my favorite bands, actually.
Exactly, yeah.
Yeah, mine did pretty good. I had the same top band 2 years in a row. Last year, I was in the 0.5% of listeners.
Oh.
The year before that, I was in the 0.1% of listeners.
Look at you.
It's insane.
Yeah.
I mean, they're not that popular. It'd be more impressive if it was like Taylor Swift, but it was not.
That would not be impressive.
Well, I mean, think about it. If out of all the millions and millions of people that follow, if you were in the 0.1% of listeners, that would be insane.
I don't want to be around that person.
Yeah, I don't either. No offense.
I'm right there with you.
No, but 0.1. That was Leprous.
Leprous?
Band Leprous.
Oh,
Love that band.
I haven't listened to them a whole lot.
Dude, they're kind of an acquired taste for most, so either people love them or they don't because they're very different.
Yeah.
But I just got tickets. So I got tickets to a show. They're coming back to Lawrence in April.
Dude, I'm really bummed I missed the Prada show this last weekend. It was my brother's birthday. I mean, he lives in Chattanooga, but I couldn't get away. I was like, because I have not seen Like Moths to Flame, and they were opening for him. And they're like really heavy. Like, have you ever listened to Like Moths to Flames?
I've not.
They're very heavy. Like, I think their last album, they're playing below A now. So,
nice.
But then again, everybody's playing in like G and F now.
Exactly. It's like the new thing. Who do you think started that? I have my theories.
Attack.
You think so? You think they started low?
I think they made it popular.
See, I would almost go further. What do you feel about Meshuggah?
Granted, yes, you're right, because they did Gent. I guess what I'm trying to say with that is they popularized
it.
Because I remember Attack. Oh, God, I can't remember the name of the album. It was their third album, but before it came out, they were bragging about putting bass strings on their guitars, and everybody
I think I remember that.
And everybody was like, "What?" And they had like a song in drop G, one in F, and then the rest of the album was in, I want to say, it was probably in F. But most of the songs were in G or F, like drop G, drop F, and they were playing on baritone guitars. So
That's insane. That's and see that it's funny. I remember Attack Attack. I didn't listen to him much, but our bass player was obsessed.
yeah,
Every time we talk about it, he was always talking, yeah, Attack Attack or Prada. Like that was like his
yeah,
jam
yeah,
too.
yeah. I I loved that when it started getting heavy like that, and then I started looking out for bands, and like I think I showed you Glass Cloud and stuff like that.
Uh-huh.
Like I got to where I was really into it, but then I was also into a lot of music. Then I was playing like I was fronting a band at the time. And my thing was like I was really big into dubstep, and I wanted to do dub metal because
Uh-huh.
like Attack Attack kind of did it, and some other bands were starting to get into it, but I was like,
Uh-huh.
no, we need to do it now because the town I lived in is Statesville, North Carolina. That's where Onward to Olympus came out of. And everybody's like, no, we got to sound like this so we can get on Face Down. And I'm like, I don't want to be on Face Down. I want to do something different. I want to
Uh-huh.
sound different. No, bro, we got to do this. All right, fine. So that's just
Yeah.
how it goes.
I'm trying to think. Yeah, that I feel like that tech rock was that was kind of a new metal thing too. I feel like they
Mhm.
incorporated that. I always think of Static X always pops in my head. Someone
Yeah.
like that had like rock kind of metal music, but they had a lot of electronic stuff kind of going on too.
Well, like metalcore from like what 2006 onward, because Attack Attack,
Uh-huh.
they started the whole like get that like techno beat in there, dun
Uh-huh.
dun 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 dun,
Yeah.
like really getting into that, and I dug it, and then like Under Oath did it, Prada did it, um, and I was really into that, and then it kind of just faded away around 2013. That's when everybody started getting into the gent stuff, and then everybody started sounding the same again.
I know. It's funny. Someone does something that's popularized, and then everybody's like, "Yeah, let's shift that way." It's
Well, it's like the what's the popular thing now? Dun, dun, ticka, dun, dun, ticka, dun, dun, dun. You know,
yeah, I guess.
you know exactly what I'm talking
Yeah.
about when I say that, though.
Yeah, it's so funny. Yeah. Do you listen to Electric Callboy?
Yeah, I used to listen to them when they were Eskimo Callboy.
Yeah. I just remember that's who comes to mind when I think of like dubstep metal because they were definitely in that realm.
I remember listening to them because one of the band members. This was like 2011. He was like, because I used to listen to Chunk No Captain Chunk before they came to America when they were still in France.
Uh,
And I remember showing people them, and they were like, "Oh, this band's not going to get big." 3 years later, they're playing Warped Tour. Lead singer's playing in a panda costume. It was the
Yeah.
greatest thing ever.
yeah. It's
And
crazy.
then Eskimo Callboy, nobody had heard of them because they stayed in Europe, and like in America, not everybody listened to them because they were like crude song titles and everything
Uh-huh.
else, and it was brutal, like brutal. Their first EP, and like we loved it. And then I left that band and I just kind of quit listening to them. And then I saw them pop back up, and now they've gone more techno. I think they're still fun.
Yeah.
They're a fun band to listen to.
Dude, so fun. The music videos crack me up, and I feel like now they're getting so much just based on like YouTube reactions.
Oh,
like
yeah.
people react to them all the
Oh,
time
yeah.
because it's you don't expect it. A lot of songs start off techno, and you're like, "What am I getting into?" And you see them all, done with mullets and all this random
Oh,
stuff,
yeah.
and then all of a sudden they hit hard, and you're like, "Oh, okay, yeah."
What is that song? Hypa Hypa? Or
Dude,
what?
it's so good. It's so good.
I remember that came out, and I was like, "Oh man, I'm kind of done." I was,
Yeah.
like it's catchy. Don't get me wrong,
Oh,
but I
yeah.
was like, "All right, I think I'm done listening to them because they've gone too far away." But then all of a sudden, you start seeing people talk about them constantly.
Yeah.
You ever heard of Electric Callboy? I'm like, you mean Eskimo? And they're like, you can't say that.
Yeah, dude, it's crazy. I just discovered them last year.
Yeah.
So for the first time, yeah, I kept seeing their thumbnails all the time, but I never
Mhm.
bothered to because I thought it was something else. Because like
Yeah.
you see images like that with the bowl cuts, like
Yeah.
what is that song called? I don't remember, but I love
Yeah.
that one. But yeah, so I just assumed it was some like pop group or something like that. I didn't even
Yeah.
connect. And then one day I just decided like let's watch this, and I watched it. Not what I expected, and I went down the rabbit hole.
Yeah.
I listened to like all their stuff and just laughed nonstop.
Dude, they're old. That first EP, those 5 songs are just like so intense. Like, and there's very little techno to any of it. And you're just like mind melting breakdown. I don't even know what tuning. I think they were playing in like B or A or something like that. Like nothing crazy, but yeah.
Dude, it's funny. It's funny. I said Static X. I forgot. We got to go further. Remember Rammstein?
Rammstein. Oh, yeah.
They did a ton of electronic stuff, especially their
That's
first
right,
2
yeah.
albums.
I never really got into them. Like I had friends that were into them,
Dude, loved them.
but
Yeah, I was huge into them. But also, that was like a thing over in Germany, though.
yeah.
Like that's just been a thing, I think, for a long time. I guess that's where Electric Callboy's from too. So
Yep.
like it's like that's just like always been a thing there.
Which
So-
is hilarious to me because it's like you look like German metal, like the influence of like electronic music and German music, and then you just go slightly north and you got black metal.
It's super weird, isn't it? Dude, Europe is all over the place.
Yeah.
And it's mind-blowing to me. And it's funny, too, because, like, it's actually super popular there.
Oh, yeah.
Like, it's weird, like, yeah, like, I don't know, like, the whole goth scene and everything, it's like normal. And here it's like just, it's not that.
Well, Germany is so interesting from a musical perspective because, like, that's where Backstreet Boys got their start.
I didn't know that.
Germany.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay. Fair.
That's where boy bands come from, is Germany.
Hilarious.
So it's like you got, like, Backstreet Boys, Electric Callboy come from the same place.
That's crazy.
Well, I mean, like, I saw a documentary on Netflix. That's the only reason I know that, about the creep who started all the 90s boys bands, and that was his move. He would start a boy band in America, take them to Germany, get them popular, and then bring them back to the U.S. So when Backstreet blew back up, after he brought them back from Germany, he took NSYNC out there, did the same thing, and then brought them back.
Interesting.
Yeah, that was his move. He would take them to Europe, get them big, and then...
It's like a jump start.
Yes.
Wow. I've never thought about that. That makes sense.
Yeah.
That's funny. Okay, cool. So we talked film, we talked movie, or we talked film, movies, music. So this is my favorite question. So we'll move on to this one. So what's the biggest struggle that you made it through?
Depression, probably.
Yeah.
I think for a long time, like that's probably been the biggest thing I've gone through. Like I would say this last summer, but it's probably not as bad as like depression because when I was 14, in a week time span, my cousin committed suicide and one of my childhood friends died of a rare disease within 3 days of each other, to the point where we were figuring out the funeral plans for my friend. I came home to be like, hey, Mom, the funeral's on Wednesday. And she was crying. And she's like, your cousin killed himself. And so, like, at that time, too, the friend group I was with also had a lot of, like, depression and that sort of things in it. And a lot of people were cutting. Like, I got into cutting for a little while as well. And, like, that was something I struggled with hard, like suicidal thoughts and stuff like that. It was like a looming cloud behind my head, to the point where when I first started going to therapy, I told my therapist, I'm convinced that I'm going to die by my own hand when I'm older. Like, I don't know when, but it's going to happen at some point. I'm going to be the reason I die. And he was like, well, that's dark, but that was, I think that's the big one. And it took me getting married, having children, to where my wife told me, like, I can't be with you and raise a kid with you if you're going to be in this dark headspace. With this, you have to, like, go get help. And so I went and got help, and it took a lot for me to get past that. Because I think from 14 till probably 30, I, on a daily or weekly basis, would think about suicide. And that's probably the hardest thing I've ever had to, like, overcome.
Yeah. So what goes on in those moments?
It's weird. Sometimes it was just, I don't want to be alive. It was, I don't want to go through this moment. It was, I don't know why, but I just feel like dying. Like, it was just, it's hard to describe, I would say. But it was just a looming darkness, I would say, is the best way to describe it.
Interesting. Yeah, because it's funny. So I don't know why I say it's funny, but like it's, like, say I've dealt with like stints of being depressed, but I wouldn't say it was depression because I've never actually, like, I think I've only had like one thought ever of that, of like some type of suicide, and scared me because I remember thinking, like, I've never thought that before.
And when it first happens, it is scary.
Yeah.
But also the other thing that, like, also around 14, and it's something that, like, again, going back to, I had to go to therapy to even remember this. But one of the things that came up in therapy is my therapist would always bring up the fact that he's like, you talk a lot about, like, suicide and stuff, but, like, where is this coming from? When did you first start feeling this way? And for a long time, I thought, well, head injury, CTE, this is a result of concussions from my car accident, from playing soccer, skateboarding, that sort of thing. I was like, oh, this is just brain trauma incident. And then come to find out, we were in therapy one day, and I remembered when I was 14, my childhood best friend sexually assaulted me.
Really?
And because of my parents' religious background and stuff, I was so scared of them finding out that I was gay that I just buried it down deep, didn't talk to anyone about it, didn't tell anyone that it happened. And what it was is that not sharing that trauma, not talking about it, not facing it. Yeah. Even worse, my friend group that I had at that school at the time, after it happened, he was in the same friend group. So I was constantly around it. Yeah. And never talked about it, never addressed it, never made mention of it. And that just I remember saying it in therapy that it happened. And then all of a sudden the cloud went away.
Wow. So you were able to pinpoint it. So then,
yeah.
So because you didn't share it a lot, did you actually forget it?
Well, what it was is it was one of those things that it wanted to come out constantly.
Yeah.
But I would always just stuff it down.
Yeah.
And I just never told anyone. I think I might have told my brother once when I was 19 because I was having a mental breakdown and it just came out. Even it's funny, but it's not funny. Even once in college, I hooked up with this girl, and after we finished, it just came out. I didn't think about it. It just came out. And then when I was in therapy and we were talking about it, he's like, do you think that that's what's been following you around this whole time and why you have these thoughts? And I was like, yeah, I think so. And then after I addressed that, I talked about it. I started actually openly discussing it. I told my parents about it, and the weight disappeared and the cloud left.
Wow. That's crazy. So you were literally able to talk through therapy and figure out the exact moment, and that's what lifted all this stuff from you?
Yeah.
Crazy. So do you think it was because that incident was rooted in guilt and shame?
Yeah, 100% it was.
Yeah.
I mean, because, without getting into too many crazy details, it was, when you grow up in the church, and you're like, yeah, one day I'm going to have a wife and, this, that, and the other. But before that, you're like, well, what do I do? And so me and my friend at the time, it was like, well, we don't know what to do. And then we started doing stuff. Yeah. And then I started feeling guilt about it. I said, I don't want to do this. And then he attacked me, essentially, is what happened. So it's, so for a long time, I blamed myself. And I didn't want other people to know that. And, that's just how it came about. And so it was a lot of shame, a lot of guilt. And then finally talking about it, addressing it, all of that melted. To the point where when I talked to my parents about it, they were like, why didn't you tell us? And then I said, well, I thought you would think I was gay or you'd disown me or this, that, and the other. And it made them kind of open their eyes to what they believe and how they had to act. So it was, I think it was more of a growing moment for everyone.
Yeah.
Or in my life.
Yeah.
In a lot of ways.
Sounds like it. It's interesting to think about too, because I don't know if you've ever done any learning of law of attraction or energy levels, and because they talk about guilt and shame being one of the lowest levels that you can be in, and it makes sense if that's the case. If that's what you're feeling daily, it makes sense that you'll be in that depression state
100%
from feeling guilt. And it's funny because if it's guilt and shame, then it doesn't necessarily matter what happened. If you're in a constant state of guilt and shame, that's where you'll be. That's really interesting to think about.
Well, and what's wild about it is it bled into everything. No matter, I was never good enough. I could never do anything perfect enough. I developed a perfectionist mentality because of it. I developed anxiety because, a lot of things stemmed out of it that didn't have to happen. Yeah. And, I'm better for it, I think, because I overcame it. I didn't commit suicide. Yeah. I know a lot of people that did not win that fight. My cousin, friends over the years, all that stuff. I've actually been working about a script about all this.
Have you?
Yes, I have actually. I wrote it I started, funny enough, I started working on it like right after I graduated college. And at the time I didn't know what I was writing it about. And then like a couple of years ago after therapy, I was like, oh, this is what I'm writing about. Like I didn't even know.
That's wild.
Yeah.
But that's even, I feel like that's also healing in itself as
Yes.
well. Like being able to put something down like that, almost like put it into some form of art. And I think that's why art's important. I think about that, like before, I always tell people this. So like when I first went to therapy, and this wasn't that long ago, this was like, 3 years ago, they were asking me like, what emotions do you know?
Yeah.
And I was like, mad, happy, and sad.
Yeah.
Like, yep, do you know any more? Are there more? Yeah, there's a whole lot more.
Yeah.
Right? And it's just like, I didn't know. I didn't understand what emotions were, didn't understand like the purpose or anything. So like, it's been a huge journey the last 3 years of really figuring that out. And it's been awesome to be aware of that. But, yeah, before all that, I realized that I was using music as a way to do that. Like the way I was writing, I didn't know it at the time, but I realized like when I was struggling or had something going on, like I'd sing and scream, or I would write songs and, write lyrics. And it's just funny how like sometimes you can do things subconsciously to help you without even knowing it.
Yeah. Well, and like you think about anger. Anger is a secondary emotion, right, to sadness.
Exactly.
And like I remember my therapist, he gave me an emotion sheet, and it was like the hierarchy of emotions.
Yep.
And down here is shaming it. He goes, "You live down here."
Mm-hmm.
He goes, "You getting into metal music when you were a teenager is because of this right here." And I was like, that makes so much, like, that's why I started getting into moshing and like getting that anger out, that I was just angry about everything. But a lot of it, like, it even made me realize like I had a bad relationship with my parents as a teenager because I was angry at them. But I was angry at them because I felt like I couldn't tell them the truth.
Yeah.
But that's a me problem, not a them problem.
Exactly.
So it's funny how my wife always says life is a mirror.
It is.
And so like I see a lot of the same stuff in my kids sometimes, and I'm like, okay, cool. This is the benefit of being a parent. I can teach you lessons that I don't want you to have to learn because I learned them.
Yeah. No, to your point, like everything's a projection.
Yeah.
Right? Of us. 100%. So a lot of and it's funny because I see a lot of people that they point out all these things about other people, and actually the reason why they're noticing is because they see that in themselves.
Yes. 100%.
It's hilarious.
Anytime, like, even now, like, I used to be really bad about being critical of other people when it comes to artwork, and then I realized that I'm only being critical of them because I'm critical of myself.
Yeah, no, it's crazy. Yeah, it's crazy. If you understand that, then you start noticing that, like, oh, like whenever I notice that about someone, why am I noticing that? Oh, because there's something in me that's like that. And it's funny, but it takes a long time. Yeah, it takes some awareness to try to figure that out. Yeah, it's wild. But yeah, I've had plenty of people talk like that, and it's just funny seeing like, actually, you're the same way. Yeah. And they don't want to hear that though, because it bothers them so much about somebody else.
Well, yeah. Well, that's why they're bringing it up.
Exactly.
Their subconscious is letting them know.
Exactly. It's funny. But I don't know. People are ready to learn when they learn, though. Yeah. That's what's interesting about it too. Yeah. Yeah. Well, that's awesome. Obviously, what happened to you is awful. Sure. But at the same time, like thinking about you being able to come through something like that, like that's big. Yeah. Like that's huge.
Yeah. Well, it made me learn a lot about myself too, because it's just like when you live down in shame and guilt for so long, you almost don't even know who you are anymore, and it's like you have to kind of relearn who you are, and that's kind of what I've been doing. I mean, being a parent of young children, it makes it harder to do that, but it's all about growth.
Yeah, so, it is. Yeah, it is. Well, that's awesome. Okay, so next one. So, what are you currently going through that's positive or negative?
I don't know. Me and my wife are currently restructuring our business, stuff like that. Because we're starting to combine a lot of our business interests. Because she's a photographer, I'm a videographer, and I want to make more movies and music videos and stuff like that. So we're trying to figure out a way for me to be able to do that and her to be able to do that and be financially free and all. That's currently what the struggle of any parent with young kids, basically.
Financially free, yeah. Exactly. That's cool.
Figuring all that, raising kids. That's what I'm going through.
Yeah, so that makes sense. So then what are your ideas if you're open to sharing? Like, so how are you trying to merge that together?
Which part? The parent part, or?
Well, I was thinking more the like the business
Oh,
aspect.
yeah. Well, a lot of it is I'm just trying to figure out what I want to do, because I feel like I went down the film path, and anyone that's been to film school can relate to this. They teach you to be a snob. And so you don't, it's weird. They teach you to be creative, yet they take your creativity away from you by teaching you proper ways to do things. And so it gets rid of genuine creativity, in my opinion. So relearning that, trying to rediscover myself through music as well, because I always had a knack for drumming. But the first instrument I picked up was guitar, because I wanted to be the front man. I wanted to be Billy Joe Armstrong from Green Day, basically. And so I was like, no, I got to play guitar so I can sing up front, you know? And then I got into drums later, and I was like, oh, dude, I should have been doing this the whole time. You know, I love drums. And so now my son, he's starting to, and I'm like, okay, I'm not letting you make this mistake. I'm going to let you get into drums as soon as you're able. You know, he's 3, but...
Yeah.
You know, just that sort of thing, like just figuring out what I like in creativity. Like one thing I really love is film and film photography. And so I'm trying to get back into that more and just filmmaking at its root, instead of what this tearing down negative stories I've built in my own head around why I can't be a filmmaker.
Yeah. Dude, we always get on our own way.
And that's why I'm in the process of deconstructing a lot of that, I think, at the moment.
Yeah, that's usually the reason why people don't get where they want to go.
Yeah.
Nothing to do with anybody else. It's literally usually ourselves.
Well, and that's what I think happened to me, is like, and why I had to go to therapy when I did was when I was in film school, I did not stop working ever. Like, I think my longest stint is I went 48 hours straight without sleeping. And it was like, school, work, film set, work, film set, work. And like I did that for 2 days straight without sleeping. And I would do that routinely. Like I had a college summer class where I was working 2 jobs on film sets, going to school, and I was getting, for 1 month straight, I was getting 2 hours of sleep a night. And then I would sleep all day on Saturday.
Dude, that's wild.
Yeah. It was dumb. Like, I mean,
it's not good.
Objectively, I probably could have lived to be 90, and now it's going to be 80 because of it. But you know, whatever. Yeah. But no, I think, and after that, I worked myself so silly that when I got through it all, and I finally had to slow down, I had to face myself, and that's where the depression came back strong. And I think I was working through it, and I got so low by the time I met my wife that I had to go to therapy. And I think I built all these really terrible stories to myself, and it kind of killed all creativity that I had. And it's been coming back now that I'm deconstructing these narratives I built in my head, you know?
Yeah. Yeah, it's funny to go back to what you said a minute ago. It's funny, I followed a similar path.
Yeah.
I would drum all the time, but the first thing I got into was guitar and singing, right? For the same reason as I wanted to be the front man.
Yeah.
Right? So that's really funny to think about. That's what I did, because singing and screaming, because I wanted to be that guy.
Yeah. Dude, there's nothing more exhilarating than being a front man.
Yeah.
Screaming into a microphone in front of a crowd of people is the greatest feeling on the face of the planet.
No, I know it feels good. The funny thing is, though, is it made me laugh because I was writing these songs because I was like, because the thing about me, too, is I always wrote to typically, I would write to my threshold of like what I could play. So most of the riffs at the time that you might hear on music that I play, like that was at the peak of what I could play at that time.
Yeah.
Besides like maybe some of the rock ones where I was going more for sound, but so it was interesting. And then I would write those, but then also I wouldn't think about singing with them. So being able to do that. So then afterwards I'd write the singing where I thought it would go in the songs. Then before you know it, then I like got to put it together, and I was like, and that was something else. That took a lot of practice to try to figure out. You're playing, you're also singing at the same time, and then trying to figure out where to, how to like, because sometimes it might be a polyrhythm. You might be playing, 6/8 on the guitar, and you might be kind of singing 4/4, and you're like trying to figure out how to navigate that. It's funny though. I've never
understood people that can drum and sing at the same time.
Yeah,
like Aaron Gillespie, the guy from Lestill, Atreyu, like all those dudes. I don't get it.
Dude, it's funny. It feels similar though. It feels similar to
Mm.
me, or I think so, because I've practiced a little bit for fun, like drumming and singing, and it doesn't feel much different to me, in my opinion.
Interesting. Well, see, but you've already you've kind of laid the groundwork in your brain
Exactly.
with the guitar.
It was just
yeah.
repetition over
Mhm.
and over, and then figuring that out. But
Yeah.
yeah, it's fascinating.
Hmm.
But yeah, I think actually at the root is I wanted to be able to write songs. So that was
Yeah.
more of my big journey. But yeah, it was funny how it was similar to yours in that aspect.
Yeah.
So let's see.
Ooh,
So
I keep touching the mic. I'm bad.
That's okay.
You're gonna be so mad at me when you go.
I'm sure it's fine. See, what's a skill or talent that you like to share with us?
I make really good fermented hot sauce.
Okay, tell me more about that.
Yeah, I got into that 2018, sometime around there. I don't know. I just started growing peppers, and I always, like growing up, I always try to challenge myself how spicy I could eat something.
Mhm.
So then naturally, not naturally, I became a smoker. You know, when I was 19, I quit like 3 times, and I finally quit for the final time when I moved to Kansas in 2016. By that point, I'd burnt my taste buds. And so, like, one common thing you'll find with smokers is they get into hot sauce because they can't taste things like they used to.
Mm.
So I started getting into hot sauce pretty prevalently. Well, I always hated the flavor of the hot sauces, but I wanted the spice. So I found fermented hot sauce. So like your Tabascos, your Louisiana style. And I was like, man, I wonder if you could do that with other peppers. Sure enough, you can. And so I think the first one I made was a mango habanero. And that one turned out pretty good. And I was so happy with how it turned out that I was like, all right, sweet. I'm going to grow all these peppers and make hot sauce. And the first year I did it, I think I sold $300 worth of hot sauce.
Nice.
And I did a habanero. I did a ghost pepper. I did a Carolina Reaper, even though that batch got tainted by bacteria and no one got to try it because it died. and then I made a Tabasco, cayenne, and Anaheim pepper blend that I did with lemon and lime juice. So it was like a tangy lemon lime hot sauce, and I still have that. That's probably one of the last ones I still have, but my ghost pepper one I did with blood orange juice. And that one was the favorite. It's probably my favorite sauce I've ever made because most people can't handle ghost pepper, but I love the flavor of ghost pepper. And then you add the blood orange on top of it. It gives it a slight sweetness, a little bit of that citrus that kind of throws it over the top, and it can go in everything. Like,
That's
I
awesome.
love it on tacos.
Nice. Okay, so do you have a name for your business?
Yeah, well, I haven't trademarked anything, so don't steal this, but the Citrus Pepper Company, because most hot sauces are finished with vinegar.
Mm.
I don't like that. I finish with citrus juice. So my habanero one I finished with lemon juice. The tangy cayenne Tabasco one I finished with lemon and lime. My ghost pepper one I did with blood orange juice. And then I'm working on some more hot sauces now where I want to get into like Thai chilies with Thai citrus.
Uh-huh.
And then I learned recently that there are certain Pakistani peppers with Pakistani citrus that you can do. And I was like, all right, cool. I like this, like citrus with peppers. Like, I think it's the perfect blend. And so.
How do you think it would taste on barbecue?
Great.
Okay.
Because the cool thing about fermented is it's good for your gut because it's a probiotic.
Mm.
So it's healthy. So I have that angle too. So it's like the hippie hot sauce.
Dude, you might partner with one of the guys we had on this podcast
yeah?
last time. We just released his episode Friday. So Greg, he's got a barbecue business. That
Sweet.
They're actually smoking barbecue.
Dude, that's the one I'm getting into now too.
Dude, if you
I
think
love
about
smoking.
it, reach out.
Yeah.
That'd be cool to do a little maybe collab or
Smoking
something.
meat's
Cool.
fun. Nothing more fun than sitting back and sitting by a pit all day.
Yeah, they got the whole thing. I guess what they're going to do is they're going to try to enter some competitions.
Nice.
This year, next year, something like that. They're going all
What's
out.
his favorite meat to smoke?
Oh, dude, I don't think we even got on that conversation.
Oh, okay.
But I'll have to get you in touch with him so you can ask him
Yeah.
personally. But yeah,
That'd be fun.
Yeah, it's sounds good. Told him maybe we can do a sponsorship. 98% podcast and barbecue.
I'll bring some hot sauce.
There we go. Yeah, that's what I'm saying. That's awesome. Cool. That's awesome. I didn't know that about you either.
Yeah.
So what's something you're learning about currently that you'd like to teach us?
Bread making.
Bread making?
Yes.
Okay, tell us more about bread making.
I have, well, I don't know how much your audience knows about how terrible our food industry is.
Oh, I'm sure they know.
So, but, since 1990 or 91, they have been spraying folic acid on all wheat plants as an enrichment, right? So that you can get more vitamins, minerals in your food, right? Except most people can't absorb folic acid in its natural form. And so, hey, diseases. Anyway, I got into I learning about that. Like, my kids love bread. I love bread. But I'm like, dude, I can't feed my kids this, knowing that.
Yeah.
So I started looking into it, and I was like, oh, well, growing up in the South, we were always taught to be resilient and self-sufficient. That means like canning your own food and hunting and all that fun stuff. So for me, I was like, naturally, all right, cool. Flour has a shelf life of like 3 to 6 months. Well, wheat berries have a shelf life of 10 to 30 years. So as long as you have the berries and you don't grind them, they'll last for a long time. So it's a really good sustainable food. Well, organic, non-GMO, or heirloom wheat varieties actually have more nutrition in them and less of the diseases that modern wheat strains have.
Oh.
So I started looking into that stuff, and I was like, okay, how can I make sure my children don't just eat processed mac and cheese all the time? Like, if I homemade bread that has a high protein count in it and very rich mineral density, I can feed my kids bread and feel good about it and not worry about them getting, diabetes or whatever. So it came from that. And so I bought a grain pill attachment for my stand mixer, and I have been buying wheat berries, grinding them myself, and making my own bread.
Dude, that sounds awesome.
Yeah, it's fun.
Can I buy bread from you?
I don't know if I'm ready to do that yet, just because I'm not that good. Like, if I show you, the bread is delicious. It's just I'm still figuring out how to get it to rise better. Mm-hmm. Like, I made pizza last night. It was really good.
Dude, that sounds awesome.
Yeah, I homemade the dough and everything. But but no, it's all about the recipe. Flour, water, salt. If you do some yeast in there, if you want to do sugar to help it rise, you can do that, or you can put honey. I like doing honey instead of sugar. And then, make a little bread loaf. And nothing better than fresh bread.
Dude, it's telling me. I love it. I've known a few people that bake, and anytime they'd give me like fresh baked bread, there's no comparison. Like, it's crazy. It tastes so good. I feel so good after eating it.
That's the last one I made.
Dude, that looks awesome.
Yeah, it was okay. Yeah.
Dude, you got to bring me a sample. I want to see how it tastes.
Yeah, okay. I'll do that.
Sweet. Cool. That's awesome. So what are you doing for fun now?
I go to the movies about once a week.
Okay.
It's usually my fun time these days.
Okay. So you've watched, because I think every time we chat, it's always about some movie and I haven't seen it.
Yeah.
Typically.
Yeah, that's usually how that goes.
These days. So what's the best one you've watched let's say within the past 6 months?
Well, I went and saw that movie Heretic. It was terrible.
Yeah.
I thought it was terrible. Well, it was not a terrible film. It was objectively good. I just saw the ending before it started, basically. So
it was predictable?
Yes.
Yeah.
For me, and I thought a lot of the religious arguments they made were silly. Like, the ultimate point of the film was that there is no religion, it's control. Which, kind of duh, but that's any man-made anything. So I was just like, okay, this is dumb, So that's where I ended up. So no spoilers. Still go watch the movie if you want. But probably the best movie I've seen recently in the last few months would probably be Strange Darling.
Okay. What was that one?
It's about. That is hard to describe because the story is not linear.
It already sounds good.
It's interesting because it's following these two characters who meet up for a night, and then I can't tell you anything without giving away the movie. So.
Okay, don't give away the movie.
Then. Yeah, but it's based on a serial killer. How about that?
Okay, Strange Darling.
Yeah, and the cinematographer is a well-known actor, which I thought was interesting, and they shot on 35mm film. So. Okay.
I'm writing this down because I might watch that one.
It's worth a watch.
Okay. Good. Okay, so going to the movies.
Yeah.
Okay, I like that. Now, so we've covered quite a few things. So this is one of my favorite questions. This is also the question that becomes the thumbnail of this,
Okay.
video. So
Uh-oh.
if we were to sum up your life story from beginning to now, what's that story called?
The Adventures of Chaos and Monotony.
Oh. Okay, tell me a little bit about that. What's that mean?
Well, my 20s were very chaotic, right? And I think because I went to 3 different high schools and I went to 3 different colleges. After I turned 18, I was just very much like my parents. Okay, backtrack that a little more. After I broke my back, I got insurance money from the accident.
Yep.
And I wasn't allowed to have that money until I was 18, unless my parents didn't feel I was responsible enough, and then it would be 21. If I still wasn't responsible enough, it'd be 25, and then I'd get the money. And they were like, if you don't go to college, you're not getting the money at 18. So I didn't want to go to college. So I just picked the first school I could, and then I just literally applied to that school in Florida and just went. Didn't visit the school, didn't anything. I had literally just heard of it and was like, all right, cool, I'm going there for film. And then I went. Blew through all that money in a year and a half, which is now insane because I have student loan debt. And I'm like, if I would have gone to an in-state school, I would have gotten out of college with some of that money left over, which is sickening to think. But I needed to grow up and mature, and it was good for what it was. But yeah, I say chaos and monotony because I feel like in my 20s I was chaotic. Like I was constantly searching for something, right? Yeah. And so I would get into nefarious situations. Like I think I told you the story of almost getting knifed by meth heads in Florida.
Yep.
The time I thought I was going to get raped by 2 dudes on the beach in North Carolina.
Yep, you told me that one too.
So I feel like that was all of that. And then I say monotony because since I moved to Kansas, everything slowed down. And I got into rhythms and routine, and having children, you kind of have to get into routines. And so that's why I would say chaos and monotony. Yeah,
it's kind of like yin and yang.
Yes.
Right. I like that. It's balance, and I think that's super healthy. And it's fun to think too. Like I've always thought that. I've always think we all go on journeys, and I think we're always striving for that opposite. So I feel like if it starts off chaotic, it seems like we tend to gravitate more towards order in the future. Whereas sometimes we start off orderly, we tend to kind of stray into chaos. And it's kind of interesting, but it's like if you think about it, it's not wrong. None of it's wrong. It's just different. It's interesting. So
and I think going back to the yin and yang interest, if you live chaos, the universe will give you calm. And I think for me, just going back to just therapy and holding stuff in, I was always searching for love in people.
Yeah.
That I didn't think I had in my parents because I refused it. And then once I fixed all that, now I'm finding love in my family and then calmness and So it's just okay, cool now. But the beauty of that is now that I'm in that calm space, now I have the opportunity to live life how I wish after.
Yeah.
Because I'm not bound by the past holding me back.
Yeah. What you were searching for was within the whole time.
Ding, ding, ding.
Isn't that wild?
Yeah.
We go through so much to try to find that out when people say it all the time.
God, and it's one of those things you're just like, man, if I just would have known this 10 years ago.
The thing is, though, if someone would have told you 10 years ago, you would have ignored them.
Yeah, I would have told them to go kick rocks.
Exactly.
I'll never forget that when I was living in Florida, I worked at a Dodge dealership as a porter. And so do you know what a porter is?
I don't.
This guy who works in the sales department. Somebody pulls up to get their oil change. I go park the car and put mats in the car to make sure it doesn't get dirty. That was what I did. And I worked with a guy, and he's like, so what are you going to school for? I was like, do film. He goes, what's your backup plan? I said, music. He goes, those are 2 terrible ideas.
Sounds about right.
And he goes, you ain't going to make it. You need to find a backup plan. Sure enough, I'm doing a video now, so I'm doing okay, I think.
There you go.
So,
oh, dude, that's it's funny how that works. It's like sometimes people can change your life in ways that it doesn't have to be compliments. It can be like that.
Yeah.
Which is wild. Which actually brings me to that point. I forgot to ask that question.
Which one?
Who's someone that's changed your life that doesn't know it?
Because most people that change my life know it.
Yeah.
From my kids.
Yeah.
That's an easy. I now that I think that's easy. My kids did.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I always tell people that, like, when people question having kids like some of the best teachers.
Yeah.
And it's not intentional. It's just part of like growing up when you have kids and seeing things differently.
Yeah.
But yeah.
That's why I used to joke with my film friends because, a lot of people in film, they don't want to have kids because it's expensive. Your life is crazy. You don't have time to settle. And they were like, so what's it like being a dad? And I'm like, do you enjoy your life as it is right now? Do you enjoy who you are right now? Yeah. Cool. Don't have kids because you will change and everything will be different. Whether you want to or not, you're going to change and everything will be different.
It's funny.
Not to say that that's a bad thing, but just it is going to be different.
Yeah. No, it is. It is.
Unless you're open to that, it's going to be a bad time.
It's true. Although what's funny is I feel like I haven't known of many people that have regretted having kids.
You're right. At least people I know. Like I have met people that regret having kids, but that's because they weren't the best parent and they raised terrible people.
Yeah, they just failed on all accounts.
Yes, they failed, but it's because they didn't work on themselves first or didn't allow their children to teach them.
That's fair.
But that's just life in and of itself. Like if you're a stone wall, you're either going to crack or you're going to crumble.
Yeah.
So you either allow yourself to crumble and build out of the ashes, or you just crack and crack and crack until you break.
Yeah. It's wild. Okay, so this part here, this is the part where I like to give you, 15 minutes of fame, whatever you need.
Oh, no.
So this is where you get to share with the audience, maybe some stuff, interests that you're in, social, stuff you want to promote, whatever you want to do. This is kind of that time if you want to take it.
Yeah. Well, right now I'm not doing anything crazy. Like I'm planning on next year, I would like to do a short film and a feature film. That's my goal as of right now. However, I've been saying that for 3 years now, so we'll see. I also would love to record an album finally, but we'll see if I ever do that. Not to say I won't, but it's just life. Like right now I'm worried about building my business up, just getting to a different space, trying to find a good landing spot for my family at the moment. I'm taking things easy. I'm not focused. I'm not in a rush to figure things out like I used to. And so just taking a day at a time. I mean, I have Instagram. I'm the only Ryne Seals on Facebook and Instagram. Fun fact. And I have a YouTube channel, Variegated Films, Varigated, Variegated. It's not spelled variegated. It's the redneck of me, variegated. So, I've got that. And then, that's about it.
Yeah.
Cool. I'm trying to stay off social media as much as my job requires me to be on social media.
Exactly. Cool. Well, hey, if you need some support for that, let me know. Because goals are tough. It took me 10 years to write that last album. And it was just delays. So we had the music done for 10 years, and it took me getting laid off to be like, okay, well, time to record.
Yeah. No, I get that. Like for me, it's more of like I've had a concept album for years I've wanted to do. 5 songs that is, I want to call the album Trauma Dump. And it's literally me working through the emotions of my teen years.
Dude, that's awesome.
Yeah, it'd be weird. Because like one of the songs I want to do, I think we've talked about this. There's a band called Relient K. I know you haven't listened to them too much. They had this album called 5 Score and 7 Years Ago. And the final song in the album is called Deathbed. To any of your listeners who know what I'm talking about, it's a 9 or 11 minute epic. It's just a ballad, but it's piano. I think there's a few different time signature changes throughout of it, but it mainly sticks to 6/8 and then goes to 3/4 and then 6/8 and then 4/4 and then 6/8 and then and it's this story of a man. That's the song. It's him on his deathbed recounting his life. And then he passes away and goes to heaven. And then that's when the lead singer of Switchfoot comes in and he's God.
Still know how to take that.
Yeah, I know. No, but and I got to see that song live, so I'm
That's awesome.
But I've always wanted to do a song like that. So
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Well, hey, if you ever want to collab, let me know.
I would love to.
I always reach out to people to collab because I think that process is fun because I've really only ever wrote songs for me for the most part, so I haven't collabed much. So it's kind of cool.
Yeah.
It'd be fun to see what we can come up with having two different, minds and stuff.
Yeah,
So
that'd be fun.
It would be cool. Okay, so this is the last question.
All right.
You ready?
Yeah.
So how we like to close these out is the previous guest creates a question for the next guest.
Oh, yes.
And then you're going to answer that question. Then you're going to create a question for the next person.
Okay.
So I think this one is really fitting too, which is funny. I feel like there's so many synchronicities here. It seems like with a lot of these. But so the last question that they wanted to give to you, what is the happy 5-year older version of you doing?
The happy 5-year-old?
The happy 5-year older version of you. So in 5 years, what's a happy version of you doing?
I'm on a red carpet at the Chinese theater.
Okay.
Yeah. That's a happy
yeah.
5-year-old 5 year from now version of me.
Okay.
Yeah.
Cool. You want to elaborate on that?
No.
No?
Just I get a movie out and it has a Hollywood premiere. That's all I
There
want.
we go.
Yeah.
Good. I like that. Okay. So now what question do you want to leave for the next guest?
If you could be any person from a period of history, who would it be?
Okay, who would you be?
Who would I be?
Mm-hmm.
There is a cinematographer who I did a paper on in college who I really respected his work. He was a French cinematographer. He shot something like 70 films in his 40-year career. He got diagnosed with cancer, and they told him to retire. Instead, he made his final film, and he died 3 months after wrapping filming.
Wow. Okay.
And in my paper, I argued that he was the first and only auteur cinematographer.
So if you could be any person, that's who you want to be. Okay.
Plus, he came up he started in black and white and finished in color. I would have loved to have been a cinematographer.
So he got to see the transition.
Yes.
From it. Yeah. Wow.
I would have loved to have been that.
And I'll bet you that changed. I mean, that probably changed the way people filmed in general.
Yes.
From switching from black and white to color. Like, I can only imagine.
The way you light is completely different.
Exactly. I believe that.
Yeah.
That's wild.
And the way you do exposure, everything. Everything is different.
Dude, that made me think about, you've watched The Hobbit, right?
Yes.
So
unfortunately.
I remember I actually liked them, but I remember them talking about the cameras they used only brought out certain colors, and I remember they had to do crazy things with their set. So I can't imagine what that looked like.
Sorry, that triggered me.
No, tell me more. So, yeah, tell me more about that. Okay.
It pissed me off so much when he did that. So what it was is they're shooting with red cameras. They were shooting at 48 frames per second, which is double 24, of traditional.
Yep.
And what that does is it gives you a hyper real image, even more so than a 30p.
Yep.
So you're capturing more color information, to your point. But what it also does is it completely changes your prosthetic approach, everything, and it was silly. It looked stupid. And the 24 down convert looked stupid as well. And it made me so mad. That story was so contrived. There were too many people writing that. I'm going to stop right there. It made me angry. I remember watching all three in the theater being like, this pisses me off, having read the books, having loved the original Lord of the Rings. And then he screwed it up.
Dude.
So I don't know if I can cuss, but he screwed it up. He screwed it up.
I didn't mean to end the podcast on a trigger note, but the funny thing is I actually like those.
I know. Well,
but I also didn't read the book, so I don't have that to compare it to. I just watched it and was like, yeah, this isn't Lord of the Rings, but it's like...
It should have been 2 movies. It should have been 2, not 3.
Yeah.
He made up all of the third movie.
Well, the third movie, yeah, it was just basically a whole war. That was all the whole thing was.
Yeah, which Bilbo was knocked out in the books. So, anyway.
Yes. Cool. Well, hey, Ryne, it was nice having you on.
Yeah, man.
I'm glad you could do it. Great. Thank you for sharing. And hopefully some people took stuff away. I know I did. So
we're ending on a good note. I've got 5 missed calls and a text message. I need to go home.
Perfect. Okay. Cool, man. Well, appreciate it. Thank you.
All right, man.
Okay.